Good evening, year 13 history. It's me, Miss Sarmiento, and we're back with another episode of my 3.1 internal series. Um, like I said in the last video, we will be looking at perspectives today. First, we're gonna define what perspectives are, and then we're gonna look at a few perspectives from the 1918 influenza epidemic in Samoa. So let's get going. So first we've got the definitions. We've got two definitions here. The first one is the Cambridge English Dictionary definition, which says that perspectives are a particular way of viewing things that depends on one's experience, their personality, or their emotional state at the time. Now, as historians, we generally want to look at the history definition of perspectives, which says that perspectives are a way to understand the social, cultural, intellectual, and emotional settings that shaped people's lives and actions in past events. Um, Again, these two are a little bit different, but more or less the same in terms of definitions. But as historians, we would want to lean more towards the history definition. Again, neither of them are wrong. You can, they're both correct, but as historians, let's lean more towards the history definition. Let's look at some colonial and Pacific perspectives of the 1918 influenza epidemic. So we've got Lieutenant Colonel Robert Logan, which is a key figure in this event. So let's look at his perspectives on the situation. First and foremost, he rejected an offer from American Samoa for medical assistance, despite they desperately needed it. He was aware that the Talon was carrying an infected passenger, but failed to do anything productive about it. So with those two bullet points, we already can understand that Robert Logan's perspective on the situation was that he didn't see it as an issue. He genuinely didn't understand why he needed to do all of this. He didn't see that there was anything wrong. And again, he didn't care. So we've got Logan seemed unable to comprehend the depth of feeling against him and his administration. So that meaning he genuinely didn't understand why people were upset with him with the choices that he made. Which is crazy to me. Like, does he really not see that he did so much wrong? So he genuinely didn't see anything wrong with failing to tell the Samoan people that there was a virus in New Zealand, failing to tell the Samoan people that there was an infected passenger on board, failing to accept medical assistance when the virus became rampant in Samoa, and failing to take the blame for it, failing to, stand up and say, hey, look, I'm so sorry for the choices I made. He didn't do any of that. He genuinely didn't see anything wrong. He didn't think he was in the wrong at all. But the fact of the matter is, Logan didn't care, nor did he want to care. And he didn't care because the severity of his actions didn't impact him directly. He didn't end up contracting the virus and dying from it. He got to resign from his job peacefully and leave Samoa, leave all of that behind, and go back to New Zealand and live a good life, which is really unfair. But one thing you should think about when looking at perspectives in this event is who these people were. Who was Robert Logan? He was Pakeha. He was a white European man living in a time that made him kind of better than everyone else. His people were at the top, essentially. And Pakeha attitudes towards people of color during this time were not so good. And so that's one thing to think about when we're understanding Robert Logan's perspective on the situation. He was a Pakeha. Pakeha didn't care for people of color. He didn't care to look after the people of Samoa. He didn't care about their well-being. He only cared about himself, his own health, and how he was viewed. He didn't care. Now let's look at the Samoans. Very rightfully so. They were angry and upset with Logan's incompetency and refusal to undergo appropriate quarantining before arriving to Samoa. So they were so upset at Logan because he failed to protect the Samoan people from this virus when he had every power to help, and he didn't do anything about it. This made Samoans their perspective towards the New Zealand government very different. They became distrusting of the New Zealand government. And that is because a quarter of Western Samoa's population were impacted by influenza. Whereas you see American Samoa, which is a territory of the US, they were left unscathed. So imagine, like, put yourself in the shoes of a person in Western Samoa at this time. Imagine, seeing this virus destroy your people and destroy your country and the country that you love, and then looking over to American Samoa and seeing and hearing that, oh, everything's fine there, because the US government put lots and lots of efforts to quarantine people who are arriving in Samoa and American Samoa. They took so much effort to block the virus from entering their part of Samoa. And imagine that. It's like it feels unfair. And it makes the Samoan people and made the Samoan people view the New Zealand government as failing Western Samoans. They failed to protect us. So how are you going to feel as a Western Samoan at the time when your government failed to do anything about it? You're not going to be happy. You're going to be distrustful of them. They're untrustworthy. So like I said before, Logan didn't even mention the Samoans that influenza had already reached New Zealand, which then justifies again their just distrust for him. So you've got the colonial perspective, where Logan saw no issue with anything he did. He was like, you know what, this is not my problem. I'm just gonna resign, go back to New Zealand, and let someone else deal with that. Whereas the Samoan perspective is, this man destroyed our country. He brought over a deadly virus that ravaged our country and killed a lot of our population. We're not happy with it, and we're going to be distrusting of the government now. We're going to be upset and angry with Logan and his administration. Um, and that's the gist, I would say, of the perspectives of the people involved in the influenza epidemic in Samoa. Now, I'm not gonna delve too much more into the perspectives because I want you guys to now go do further research, look into the Samoan perspective a little bit more, look into Robert Logan's perspective a little bit more, and look at probably other people who were involved, other groups of people involved in this epidemic, look at their perspectives a little bit more. So that's that. I hope that was helpful for some of you. I hope it clarified what perspectives were for you guys so you can get on with your internal. So for the next video, we're going to look at the long-term consequences of the epidemic in Samoa, and then the episode after that, we're going to look at short-term consequences. So that is all for today. I hope you guys had a really good time. I hope that was helpful, and I will see you next time. Thank you. See you guys.